All right, I am here to do my quarterly wrap up for the first 3 months of 2026. I thought this would be a good idea to try to do. I've done a couple monthly wrap ups so far, and as I'm trying to figure out like what I enjoy doing with this whole YouTube thing, I am just thinking I don't particularly want to do a monthly wrap up every single month. It's cool to be able to talk about everything I read, but I think I don't read like 20 books a month. So I think it's like reasonable to have a lot of the books I read in a month be for videos, and then the ones that aren't, that I really want to talk about, I think can be incorporated into these quarterly wrap ups. So I am going to put all of the books, hopefully I can fit, maybe they'll be tiny, I can fit all of the books that I read over the past 3 months here, all 20 of them. Take a second, look at them. Okay, we're going to talk about some of those today. In this, I am going to go through my stats. I'm going to go through some of my favorite books, some of my least favorite books, and then anything else I kind of want to go over that kind of falls into that other category of I maybe didn't get to talk about it so far and I still want to. All right, so here's my stats. For the past 3 months, I read 20 books. 7 books in January, 6 books in February, 7 books in March, I believe was the breakdown for that. Yeah, looks like it. As a whole average for the quarter, my average was 3.7 for star rating. As you can look at, like, you can see my ratings below. I had 2 5-stars, a bunch of 4s, some 3s, and nothing 2s or 1s. I had 1 unrated book, which I'll talk about in my section of, like, other books I wanted to talk about. I mostly read physical books. I think I just did 1 audiobook per month, which isn't like surprising to me. And we're close to half and half for new and authors I've read before, which is interesting to me. I think a lot of that is like those 5 sequels I read were like authors I had read before. And I've been reading a lot of T. Kingfisher recently, so some of those are definitely from her as well. Most read genre is gay, sports, romance, but I believe it's all hockey so far this year. I'll talk about one of those in particular in my best books, which is exciting, and I'll also talk about one of them in my books I didn't like as much. So, and I've been trying to read a lot of short stories this year. One of my goals lately has been to read more short story collections. And what I'm trying to do is I like reading multiple books at once. So I'll have a short story collection and I'll try to read 1 short story from that a day. And I like that because it gives you like a real sense of accomplishment. Like every day you feel like you're making progress, but also you have a clear stopping point. It doesn't feel like too much to do, and then you have time to think about that 1 short story. And a lot of the ones I've been reading, particularly lately, I've really enjoyed just like limiting myself to doing that 1 for that day. And maybe I read something else too, probably, but like having a whole day before I read the next short story kind of gives me the opportunity to like think about that 1 a little bit more if I need to or want to. So I've really enjoyed doing that so far. Short stories can be hit or miss, but I think I found some like real hits, which is rewarding. Nothing else really to say about the rest of the genres. So let's just get into my best books. My number 1 favorite book of the year. I had 2 5-stars. My favorite book of the year was Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I read this in January, so I talked about it in my January wrap-up. But it is about this character named Vesper. She, her family is a part of this religious community that she left when she was a teenager. She is been on her own since then and gets an invitation to come back for a wedding. Decides to take them up on that. It is so good. I enjoyed this book so much. It's a great horror. There was a point near the end where I was reading it and was like genuinely like feeling like kind of ill. Like it was that good. That does not happen a lot to me. I wouldn't say I'm like particularly squeamish or anything, or it just was, and it wasn't even just the gore of it. It was the whole, like, concept of what was happening to her was, like, messed up psychologically as well. It was really good. Really, really enjoyed it. Not a super likable main character, but, like, you're still rooting for her. I think that's some of the most rewarding books, is when the main character's, like, not that likable, but, like, you're still rooting for them. I think those are so fun. So that's still my favorite book of the year. Next up is the other 5-star book I had, which is Like Real People Do by E.L. Massey. So this is obviously one of my gay hockey romance ones. I really enjoyed this. This is about Alex is our hockey player here, and this is Eli. Eli used to be a figure skater, but he had an injury, and so he's disabled now. He has seizures sometimes. And this is his little service dog. And he meets Alex. Alex doesn't make the greatest first impression, but they start hanging out a bunch, and they do become, like, really good friends, but they both have feelings for each other. They're both really young. They're, like, I think they're, like, 18 and 19, and I think that does come through in their characters, but I enjoyed that. The book is very sweet. It's not spicy. There's really nothing at that at all. And I just really like their friendship between each other. It's such a sweet read. It's so easy to read. I felt so strongly about them. I like these books in general. One of the things that really makes me like it, and I look for in these specifically, is there is a team. Doesn't feel like he's the only hockey player. There are other teammates, and they are friends, or they have relationships with each other. I think it's so important for romance books to not just be around these two people and their interactions with each other. I want them to feel like they, like, have other people in their lives that, like, matter, and they have friendships with, or they have disagreements with, or anything. And for a sports romance, you have that built in with, they have teammates. And if you are making them play the sport, and presumably the sport matters to them, and matters to this being a book, then theoretically their teammates should be at least a little bit a part of it. I don't think I've ever read one before where I feel like the teammates are too much in it. So I think I want more of that than most people. Their teammates in this one, I like them as well. Eli has relationships with some of them too, and I think that is great. Like, my only little baby critique of this is Alex is meant to have, like, this, like, controversial past, like he's, like, a bad boy or something. I don't even think we needed that, because there was so little of it. It really, in the beginning, you don't even really have a sense of, like, what it is. It's, like, really, like, brushed over. Like, he, like, I don't even know what it is. Like, I couldn't even tell you now, I don't think. And so I'm like, why did he need to be a bad boy at all? If that wasn't part of, I don't know. It is a little bit a part of his character growth. You understand he was struggling with some stuff, partly because he had to be in the closet, but it should have been fleshed out more, I think. But that's, like, literally my only critique of this. So this is my other 5-star, and then I immediately went into the sequel, Like You've Nothing Left to Prove. It's a direct sequel, so it's still Eli and Alex, as you can see from the cover. And they're, like, together. And the plot of this book is, like, yeah, so it says it on the back. They get outed in this book, and so their relationship has become public, and they're the first, Alex is the first openly gay hockey player. So it's them dealing with that. But it's cute. I still love them. It's it's not as good as the first one to me, but still very good. And then this is my excuse to talk about 3 books in one. All Hail the Underdogs. I read the 3rd one of this. The 4th one, Free from Falling, I haven't read yet. I do need to do that. I read all of the 3 of these, like, so quick that I just, like, didn't do it for the 4th one, unfortunately, but I will read that. All Hail the Underdogs is a different couple. We have Roman and Damien. in this book, they're playing college hockey. They're both college hockey players together. This is Roman. This is Damien. Roman comes with this background where he's poor. He had to work really hard to be able to get a scholarship to go to school. Damien comes from a really, like, seemingly very privileged background because his family is rich. A lot of this book is kind of them learning about each other and learning about themselves and learning about the hardships that each other has to go through. Like, some of it is, like, Roman, like, kind of being taught about racism and some of the stuff that Damien has to deal with. I think a lot of that stuff is good. It feels, very, like, initial level. Like, we're not, like, engaging in complex, racial issues, or, like, we're just teaching Roman, like, babies first. Hey, racism affects even rich guys, you know? So, and it can get a little bit cringy sometimes, but I still liked it a lot. I still thought it was really good. This is maybe the one I like the least out of those, just by a tiny bit. I like it less than the sequel. The end was just kind of weird to me. There was just kind of a resolution to their story that just kind of came out of nowhere for me. It was just kind of weird. I just wasn't really into it, so. But I was into their relationship, so, like, it was still a good enough payoff for me in the end. And those are my 5 stars. Just this and Like Real People Do. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher is one of the other books I really liked I want to talk about. A Sorceress Comes to Call is about Cordelia. Her mother is a sorceress, and Cordelia feels really trapped. She's very much abused by her mother. She feels really trapped in her life. Her mother takes her away to this place with this man called the Squire. The Squire is someone her mother is trying to, like, trick into marrying her so that they can have money, basically. And the book is split between the perspective of Cordelia, the daughter, and Hester, who is the Squire's sister. She's, like, an older woman. She's pretty savvy. She's super cool. And it's about the two of them trying to, like, stop Cordelia's mother. Eventually, like, Hester is trying to figure out what's going on. She doesn't really want her brother to get married to this strange woman. She does not like her. So all T. Kingfisher books are really good. I think this is a really sweet story. I really care about the characters in this one. I thought the ending took, like, a cool turn in a way that I was, like, similar to kind of what I was, like, hoping for. I think it's not, like, the scariest book ever or whatever. It's, like, way more fantasy than horror, but there's some, like, really horrific stuff and ideas in this. And I think Cordelia is written very well as a meeker character, which she has, like, been really forced to be because her mother abuses her and, like, basically doesn't, like, let her speak and have her own thoughts or do anything. So, but I think she's really well done in that you're not like, girl, stand up. Like, you get it, and you also, like, see these really powerful, like, moments of bravery from her that I really appreciated. I thought it was a great book. Halo: The Thursday War. I have over here. It is by Karen Traviss. It is one of the Halo books. I talk about this in my TBR jar video. So I won't talk about it too much here, but this is the second book in a trilogy that Karen Traviss wrote in the larger universe of Halo novels. This is the third Halo novel I've read. I've never played a Halo game in my entire life. I started reading these because Brian David Gilbert made a video about it, and he talked about this trilogy in particular and made it sound interesting. It was interesting to me. I read the book before that, and then before this trilogy, read the first book of the trilogy, and then I read this one, and I had a blast. It was awesome. It's a 4.5 to me, really just because this feels like the second book in a trilogy, and I think it really sets up interesting stuff happens in this. It doesn't feel like boring. It doesn't feel like this book didn't need to be there. It feels like this book did need to be there. But part of it is just setting stuff up for the next one. So I think it can be hard with second books and trilogies to be a 5-star. And so I just think that's the only thing and only negative I have in this one. I had a blast. I really want to read the next one now. I'm surprised how much I like these books, honestly. And it's Brian David Gilbert doesn't miss. So the last one I really liked was Dry Water by Eric S. Nyland. It's also one I drew in my TBR jar video. And it's funny because I picked up this book because he wrote the other Halo book that I read. So it's kind of weird that worked out that way. But this is about, I believe his name's Larry. Larry goes to this, he quits his job, leaves his girlfriend, starts over. He wants to go to this town called Dry Water because he is a writer, and it's a town that is kind of famous for having intellectual, artisty types there. And he picks up and goes there. He is then destined to find this actual water that is called dry water, that is magical water. And you don't know for a while what the magical water does, but that is eventually what he is going to find and do some magic stuff with. Of course, there are people who don't want him to find the all magical super water. So there's a witch or a sorcerer and a necromancer in this who are all also trying to stop him. I just really enjoyed this. It was just a really fun adventure. The book takes some turns that I just fully was not expecting. It's not twists or anything. It's just not the way I thought the story was gonna go, and I was really surprised by some of the ideas in here, and so that made it way more fun. It wasn't if you asked me to plot this book, I wouldn't have come up with the same stuff, which is, I don't know, it's fun. It just felt really different, so I enjoyed it. Worst books. Bliss Montage by Ling Ma is one of the short story collections I read. And it averaged out to a 3-star for me. Again, nothing was below 3 stars really, so nothing was that bad in terms of worst books. There were 8 stories in this collection. I didn't rate any of them above a 3.5, so I think that kind of says that I felt really mid on it. A lot of 3.5s, a lot of 3s, some 2s in there. My biggest thing as a whole is some of it was a little bit interesting, but none of them had an ending. Not one of them. And in fact, in one of the short stories, she basically directly argues for not having an ending. She felt self-conscious about it or something, is what it feels like to me. I think you can argue all you want, unless it's a really good open end. I do think you can do not having a solid definitive here is what happened ending. I think you can do that, but I don't think she did that. I think she just stopped writing sentences at some point. I think it's a cop-out. So all of these had that. So even the best one, I'm still oh, we're done now. Oh, okay. It just felt like she didn't want to write that anymore is really what it feels like. I don't think she would say that is what happened, but it's what it feels like reading it. So my favorite one was, my least favorite one was probably the one where she argues about not having an ending, which was, I believe that was in Office Hours. And my favorite one's probably Peking Duck. It was interesting because it had different perspectives kind of in it in a way that I thought was cool. Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic between this daughter and her mother, and I thought that was well done at least. So that was probably my favorite one. I don't need to talk about that too much more. What else? Oh, The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I don't really have much to say about this. I don't think. It just was fine. It was a 3-star. It was one of the audiobooks I did. I thought it took a really long time to set up, and I thought the beginning, I was What the heck was that? Just because it didn't, the very beginning of it, I thought was like an interesting way to pull us in. And then there is a period in between that, the very, very beginning, and then when the story actually gets started, where I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? I think there were too many people in this book. You could have taken them a lot of them out of it. Kind of felt like it was trying to be a mystery in that way, and like having a bunch of these people who like, oh, they all have reasons to be there and they could have ulterior motives, but we barely dig into a lot of them, and so you could have just cut them and like nothing would have changed. And I don't know, there was just some weird stuff in this that just kind of felt like I was reading it and I was like, the main character was making a lot of these assumptions about what other people would think, and I thought those were weird conclusions to come to. I didn't agree with them, and then sometimes there were characters who had different reactions to things that I also thought were weird and I didn't get. I'm like, is this the way some people think? I guess, but it's kind of weird for me to feel. I don't feel that often in a book where I'm like, I don't understand how you could have come to this conclusion. But I felt that a few times in this book, so. Anyway, I didn't talk about what this book was about. Lo is a journalist who is going on this, like, cruise ship for this rich guy. And she sees a woman go overboard in the middle of the night. And then she's basically gaslit into, thinking that, nope, that didn't happen. Everyone on board is accounted for. You're crazy. So, it's a lot of that. If gaslighting is triggering to you, read this. And yeah, that's the plot of it. So the woman in cabin 10 went over the rails and Lo is trying to figure out what's going on with that. What else? Oh, last one of the, like, my worst books. None of these I have, like, anything that jarring to talk about, but I want to talk about them a little bit. Absolutely Pucked by E.M. Lindsay. So with Absolutely Pucked, it is the third one in the Punk is Puck series. I really liked the first two. The first one the most, for sure. The first one follows the character Tucker. Then it follows Bowden. This third one is about Ford. These guys are all on a sled hockey team. And Ford is our main character from that team in this book. And he lost one of his legs. And so he's on the sled hockey team. He meets this guy, Killian, and does not recognize who he is immediately, but we know who Killian is. Killian is the brother of Tucker, who is in the first book. Killian is also in the first book. He says awful things to Tucker. He is very, very unkind to him. And so we know about Killian from Tucker's POV, and Tucker does not get along with his brother. But Killian and Ford hook up. They have a pretty, like, instant connection that I don't super understand, which is where some of this book didn't, like, land for me. And Killian has fallen on really, really hard times, and Ford helps him out, and he kind of does that without telling Tucker or Bowden, without telling really any of his friends. And eventually they get into a relationship also without telling Tucker. Tucker doesn't even know his brother is, like, in the same town as him. And that's the story, but what bothered me about it is that Tucker is barely in it. Bowden's also barely in it, but so much of the story, the main conflict of the story is that Ford feels like he cannot tell Tucker about being in a relationship with Killian because Tucker would then make him choose between them, and Ford would always pick Tucker, because the thing that I love about these three books is their friendship. But there's so little of that friendship in this book. You really, like, would have to have read the first two for this to impact you at all. But I think it's less impactful that Tucker's not in this book. He is not into it for the vast, vast majority of it. And then with the resolution at the end, he, like, pops into it. But up until then, he's, like, 3 lines. It's crazy. If he is the cause of the main conflict in this, he should be in this. We should be understanding all the time the stakes of, well, Ford loves Tucker too, and so he doesn't want to hurt Tucker, but Tucker's not in this book. It drives me crazy. So then you're left with Ford and Killian. Killian has his own problems that I also found frustrating because they could have been easily solved, but he was being a dumbass. And those things don't bother me that much usually because I usually think it's like an emotional hurdle. This was like you could have had a phone call with, I don't want to spoil it, but you could have had a phone call, that wouldn't have been an emotional one, and you could have fixed a lot of your problems. So I don't know about that. I didn't feel the connection between these two characters very much. They like really hit it off the bat that like first night they hook up, and then we're just kind of off to the races from there, and I'm like, wait a second. I don't know about this. Like, I didn't feel it as much as you guys did, apparently. So, it was okay. It was very much a 3-star. Whatever. And not my favorite one. I just wanted to mention, we're in my other section now. I wanted to mention How to Build a Car by Adrian Newey real quick. I think I'm gonna do I would love to do different videos where I read a bunch of books for this sport. And it could be a variety of books, some nonfiction, a romance one, whatever. Try to read a broad range. So I think I'm going to do an F1 one at some point. How to Build a Car by Adrian Newey is an F1 car designer. He is with Aston Martin right now. I think he just stepped down as team principal or whatever for that, because they need to focus on making a better car. Anyway, he's a very famous and successful F1 car designer. So this is going through his career. It's a really good book. It's really interesting. I feel like I learned a lot about designing a car, about aerodynamics, and I thought it was really a good read. So if you're at all interested in F1, I really recommend it. You don't have to know a lot going into it. So go for it. Okay, we're going to talk about short stories then a little bit. My unrated book was, what is it called? Zombie Sharks with Metal Teeth by Stephen Graham Jones. This was such a weird short story collection. So weird. I was rating the stories at the start, and then I stopped doing that because I was like, I can't even rate these. I did not like it. I didn't like it, but I'm glad I read it. It's such a weird experience for me. So many of these had interesting kind of stuff, and again, I'm glad I read it, but I don't think they work particularly well as stories. It kind of felt more I don't know, maybe it's flash fiction or something is the term I should be using instead. I really don't know. The preface to this book was all these are gonna be real weird, and then they were real weird. I was okay, this is cringe how much you're saying this, but it was right. They were correct to warn you. Yeah, I didn't like most of it. I didn't get a lot of it, but I was interested in almost all of it. So it was just a weird book. I'm scrolling through this. I'm just trying to give I think maybe my favorite one in it was Old Meat. Maybe. It was a werewolf one, and easier to understand than a lot of the other ones. And I liked it. I thought it had some really interesting things to say about what love is and what is, what makes a love beautiful. I thought it was cute. Gosh, The Seas of Intranquility. That was a weird one too. People get turned into crustaceans on the moon in that one. And then there's a private investigator who's has to go to the moon. It's funny. It's interesting, but it's what is going on here? What else? I Was a Teenage Slasher Victim. I know Stephen Graham Jones has a I Was a Teenage Slasher book. I read this story. Part of me was maybe I should read it again, and part of me was I don't want to. I was so confused. And I want to read a lot more Stephen Graham Jones, but the Teenage Slasher one is the one that sounds the least appealing to me, so maybe I'll just not do that, but... So, I don't know. That's a little bit of thoughts on that. Like I said, I stopped rating them. I think a lot of them would be, kind of low ratings, because I don't know. I didn't get a lot of them. But it was interesting. And then, in terms of short story collection that I liked a lot more is actually another Stephen Graham Jones one. This one is completely different. It's so interesting. You can 100% tell it's the same author, and yet these are so different from the other ones. So the other one was like a lot of flash fiction all over the place sort of stuff. These are all like horror stories, and this is called After the People Lights Have Gone Off. Really enjoyed this one. This averaged out to a 4. I just really had a great time. I think my favorite one in this one is called This Is Love. This story, I'm shaken. I wish I had a more eloquent way to say it, but, well, what I wrote in my notes is this one fucked me up. So, that one is a 5-star, unequivocally. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Even mechanically thinking about the story, I don't understand how it got me so much. I don't know what it is. I could not point to something in you. I could not look at a sentence and say this thing about it or anything. There was like a point in it where I was reading and I had to like skip ahead a paragraph because I needed to know what happened with this one thing so badly that I like couldn't wait. I had to skip forward and then go back because I was so stressed out. Yeah. It's another one that I even kind of feel like I don't know. I just had to think about it a lot. I didn't get it all immediately, but I really liked it. That one's my favorite one in the collection. My least favorite one is The Spider Box. It felt like similar to some other ones, and I just thought it was less interesting than those other ones. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about that. Really, really good one. This one is a very particular good short story one for what I was talking about before, where like reading one a day and giving myself some time to think about it, because thinking about it was important for this. I think I figured out some more stuff in thinking about it than I did reading it the first time, and I think Stephen Graham Jones is a very good writer in that way, in that maybe not everything's immediately obvious, but with stories in here you can understand what's going on. The other one I'm not so sure about, but I thought it was so interesting that there are he has 2 different short story collections that are, again, you can tell it's written by the same guy, but they're so different. And I didn't want to read this one after I read the one before. Especially it was right after. But then I read the first story in this and I was like, dang it, I have to keep going. So I think that's all I want to say for my quarterly wrap up. Let me know what you've read in the past few months. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Have you read any of these? What do you think about just reading short story collections? Are you anti? I think a lot of people are anti short stories. I get it, especially if you're gonna read bliss montage ones that don't have endings and stuff. I get it. But I think there are a lot of good short story collections out there. I'm excited to keep doing that. I'm excited to keep reading in general. So, yeah, let me know what you've been up to recently. But I think that's all for this quarter. I will see you next quarter.